coming back and torn apart, like I might be nothing. You've been leaving all these scars on everything you touch, and you got me like, whoa, oh, oh, whoa, oh, oh, whoa, let's go, oh, yeah, yeah, let's get it.
Welcome back, fellow warriors, to the stage of history. My name is Cosmo Jazz, and today we are back for Pro on One, where I get to talk to a pro that is in the industry of whatever that may be. That be the FGC, that be tournament organizing, whatever that may be. And I want that to be well known for this series because I want it to be that the pros can be a lot of things in a way. And that doesn't mean there's just like pro gamers that can do well in tournaments and whatnot. No, because the tournaments and everything like that need multiple people for them to even be what they are. This includes commentators, this includes TOs, this includes social media managers and all this other things and whatnot to make the thing run. So I would like to bring those to the further attention so that maybe you guys can get some questions answered that you might have always wanted to ask. And this episode will be no different from the other one, being that this is a very special guest, being Flexus, who is an amazing person, has a lot to say, and a lot of good information if you ask me. She's a rising star, and she's someone you're gonna wanna look out for, I think. But enough about me, let's get back into this interview, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Welcome back, everybody, to Pro on One. I am here joined by the lovely and possibly rising star of the FCC right now, Miss Flexus. Hi, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm flattered. Thank you. I'm doing really good. I'm really excited to be on the show today. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining. We would have did this earlier, but that was on me for the most part. So if anybody is wondering why this didn't come out a little earlier like I was expecting it to, just blame me and nobody else but me. But on that end, I would like to say, well, let's get to know you a little bit, shall we?
Sure.
Just let the people know anything you would like them to know, schooling, life, things, hopes and dreams.
Yeah, so obviously I'm Flexus, been a part of the FGC since 2018, been doing content creation probably around 2016, but I didn't start really taking it seriously until about 2018. Started with Street Fighter V, always have been a big Street Fighter V lover. As much shit as I talk about the... am I allowed to curse?
Go for it. You know what? Okay. My channel is so not meant for kids that I'm just like, if you're having a problem now, why are you here?
Yeah, as much shit as I talk about Street Fighter V, I do love the game like dearly. It is one of my favorite games, and it really kind of helped shape and mold me into the person I am today. And it's weird to think of like what I was like or what I did with myself like pre-FGC. But yeah, so Street Fighter V, commentator, content creator, competitor. I'm sponsored with EQNX, and I've got a temporary sponsorship going on too with the Gaming Zone right now, which is pretty cool. They're like a little local scene here in Arizona. But yeah, I love Street Fighter. I dabble in Killer Instinct and Tekken 7 as well. I'm a big Tekken fangirl. Love Lei Wulong. So. And yeah, I've always been gaming though. I really enjoyed playing video games even since I was a kid. Like when I was like 10 or 11, I always had a controller in my hand. But I didn't really get super into fighting games until the past couple of years. Yeah.
Well, it's actually funny you asked that because that's one of my first questions. Like, what started you to get into fighting games?
So to be blunt, I had an ex-boyfriend that was into fighting games, and I was like dating him at the time, and I wasn't really super into it, but I thought it was really cool that he was, and I wanted to impress him, so I was like, yeah, I'll give this a go. And we broke up pretty soon after, like pretty quickly, but I still fell in love with fighting games, and I obviously stuck with it, and to this day I love it. I even have hosted my own locals now, and it's really cool to kind of be able to grow past that relationship from it.
Fair enough. And now I would like to ask, what made you get into the commentary side of it? And as well as, would you say that that very thing is what drives you now?
So I remember I was at my local, and I had already gotten, I think, knocked out pretty early on. I think I had gone like 0-2 or something. And one of my friends, so shout out to Sean, dude. He's a local Tekken and Street Fighter 5 guy. He had called me over. He's like, "Hey, join me for commentary." And I was like, "No, like I don't want to do that. I'm not. This was, gosh, like March of 2019. So like I was still pretty fresh in the scene, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm not familiar with the game. I'll say something that's wrong or whatever." He's like, "No, just do it. It's fun." And I did it, and it was fun. And that was kind of the crazy thing about it. I really enjoyed it. And so I like here and there would like commentate for the local scene, or like, and then I really started getting serious with streaming Street Fighter, which kind of helped build that like repertoire for like knowing what, like, to talk about Street Fighter and talk about what's going on, because I was streaming it. I started taking it a little more seriously, I would say, like mid of last year. I did a couple like small commentary things again for a local scene, and then I ended up doing volunteering, or like filling a spot for Low Kick. They're part of the Chicago scene, because they needed a commentator for Street Fighter 5, because their current commentator unfortunately had to work. So I filled in, and it was really cool because I was able to like, that was my first time commentating with St. Cola, and I was able to like sit down on the couch with him one-on-one in person. We were able to like do a live commentary session, and like that was such a cool like experience for me, because I'd never gotten to that point before where it was like that serious. And then I got to do my first major, which was undefeated. It's Arizona major here. It was a big tournament. Got to commentate with Sean Dude and a couple other local guys. It was really awesome. And it made me proud, because it's like our Arizona major, and we had big names there like Romance and Diddy Mokov competing. So it's cool to be able to commentate their matches and have it like up on stream in a big like setting like that. Then once kind of COVID came, I was a backup commentary, and then COVID kind of came around, and I took a backseat a little bit, and then I got into what is it? At the time they were called Reddit Street Fighter. I think they're called the online local now. But that was really, I think, what like set that in stone for me. Like, I want to do commentary, because I've always kind of struggled with being able to, like, I can grasp concepts really well, but being able to execute them was always the biggest struggle for me, because I would know what to do in certain situations, but being able to actually like tell my hands to do that is a whole other story. And I never wanted to be a pro player. I knew that from the get-go. I was like, I know I have no intention of being like #1 in the world, or like the best in Arizona, or whatever, mind you. But the one thing I did like was commentating, and I really enjoyed that. And for me, like, I remember seeing Jackio commentating in Capcom Cup, I believe it was 2018, and I just thought it was the coolest thing to see a female commentator in such a professional setting, and that really opened up my eyes to like women in the community, because you see women competitors and stuff like that, and it is so amazing. And the lack of representation is really unfortunate. So being able to kind of hopefully like be, like maybe somebody else's inspiration, like Jackio was for me at the time, being somebody else's inspiration to hop on mic and get that confidence going. That was really a driving force for me. But yeah, I'd say my commentary passion really started to kick off, and that's why I'm like so passionate about the scene, and why I like spend so much time like voluntarily just sitting on the mic and watching this game. And because sometimes it's like I want to go in and I want to play and I want to compete, but it's also hard because you want to commentate it too. And I think it's almost more fun because you get to joke around and you get to share those iconic moments with everybody watching. And like one of my, I commentate with Sincola pretty often. We usually do similar events together, and it's fun too because you build like relationships with people and you kind of bounce off of each other like that. And there's pressure in a different sense, but like for me at the same time, I don't have to worry about like going 0-2 at a tournament. I just have to make sure that I can do the best that I can. And I guess in a sense similar to like competing, like all the effort that I put in, the energy that I put into commentating is on me. Just like competing, like all the time you put into the game and the practice, like it's a one-on-one game. So like if you mess up in the game, like that's on you, that's not on anyone else. It's the same thing. Like if I mess up in commentary, that's on me, you know, that's on my lack of knowledge or my lack of skill set. It's not on anyone else. So there's kind of that fun, like competitive nature to it, I guess. It's just fun. I enjoy it. As a streamer and a content creator, I think it kind of was an easy transition to shift into that role.
That makes sense. Also, I'm sure a lot of people would like to be in that role of, oh, I went 0-2. What do I do now? And it's like, oh, I can do this.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's not always the best feeling to go 0-2, so it kind of gives me an excuse to be like, no, I can't compete, I'm commentating. So that way people are like, oh, it's okay, and they can't just be like, oh, well, she sucks. It's my excuse for telling people I went 0-2, or instead of telling people I went 0-2.
Hey, that's a better excuse than probably anybody else could probably come up to at this point. But it's actually funny that you were talking about maybe some kind of mistakes and stuff that you would say in commentary of it being on you, because another question I was going to ask is, what do you think are some common mistakes that maybe even you yourself have done when going into commentating and doing stuff in the moment?
So I distinctly, I'll preface the start. I remember one burning mistake in my head, and it's saying that Ed has an overhead, and he doesn't. He doesn't have an overhead, but he has a move that looks similar to one. So obviously, I think a big mistake that people make is lack of character knowledge. But I think a bigger mistake is not admitting that you don't know something. I almost find it charismatic and enjoyable when a commentator says, you know, or they initiate that kind of conversation in a way with their co-commentator to kind of pull from their skill set and their knowledge pool. And I think it's really refreshing because like commentators don't always know everything. Or at least I don't know everything. I'm always learning, and I know other commentators are too, that are like growing into the scene. And you know, there's always going to be something new that you figure out. And the biggest mistake in any field, but even in commentary, is assuming you know everything. Because if you do that and you go on mic and you are like, say like, for me, like I felt like a total asshat after saying like, yeah, it has an overhead, and then you know I sat there and I was like, one of my friends corrected me. She messaged me. She was like, oh, no way. I was like, oh, cool. Like I didn't know that, but I was like, oh man, I was too confident about that. I look like you don't know anything when I know lots about the game. It's just you make those small mistakes. So I think just like understanding that you can't know everything and that there's always room for growth and room to learn more. Even like at a pro level, and mind you, I definitely don't consider myself anywhere near like, Day Jam and like James Chen and stuff like that, because those guys have been in for years. They've got plenty of years under their belt. But for me, like, I definitely think the biggest mistake I could ever make is thinking I know everything, or thinking that I know too much about the game, or so have you. But I think kind of caution or like advice to give to people that are getting into commentary is always do your research. If you can't research the characters, research the players in your bracket. That kind of creates a way to talk or more information to talk about. But I will say too is not just knowing what you're talking about, but also knowing how to handle being on the mic, because there have been commentators that I've worked with that it's very like you can feel that it's very jarring, and there's not that connection or made because they maybe just aren't familiar with it, or maybe there's just not that flow, because there is a sort of ebb and flow to how you do commentary, because you have to talk and then you have to intentionally give space for your co-commentator to talk, and they have to somehow be able to like pick up on that. And it's so hard with like everything going on right now online. You know, you there's no physical cues that like social cues that you could normally pick up on to know to take your turn on mic. So it's being able to share that spotlight and knowing like when to take turns and like knowing when to pick up that reaction. I think I'm gonna, you know, again, I'll give tons of props to St. Cola because he's one of my favorite people to co-commentate with, and he's been in the scene for a long time. He's put in the work. Obviously, he's CPT recent commentator, and the big thing is he knows the ebb and flow. He's able to he's able to say his point, take the pause in the match, so that way the co-commentator can then take the spotlight. So. Because like it's difficult when maybe you're a streamer because you're the one that talks all the time, but when you have to share the spotlight with another person, or you have to commentate with someone else, you have to be okay with sharing that spotlight. And maybe they do get the opportunity to say, you know, so and so is the grand final winner, and they have the big shining cool moment. But at the same time too, like knowing, you know, like it's okay to share that spotlight. Because you help highlight the game in your own way too. I hope that kind of made sense.
Yeah, trust me, it made more sense than you probably think it does. But now that actually leads me to my next question, though, which is that I think that a lot of people, when they talk about like going into something, what are the do's and don'ts of something? But I don't think a lot of people talk about the do's you should do, but only in certain times. So what I wanted to ask you was maybe what do you think are some do's that you should maybe do in the future for, say, streaming, social media, commentating, and if you even want to, playing fighters?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I could talk about this for a long time.
This is your time. You can do whatever you want. I'm just here to enjoy.
So I would say we'll kind of to go into commentary and then shift into the more content creator side. So when it comes to commentary, I think a lot of the really good do's are, you know, do experiment, do try new things, do take a chance to go on mic, and put yourself out there. Do get a reel. I think reels are huge and super important in helping highlight your strengths as a commentator and helping you land both paid and unpaid gigs. Also, make sure to network with people. I think that's so huge and so important because if you network with the right people, and obviously if you leave a good impression, they're going to want to help you because, like, I'll be straight, like, St. Cola helped get me connected with other opportunities so I could then go on and commentate, like, like Salt Mine League, for example, and Juicy Game Night over in Florida, they're weekly, like, St. Cola got me in contact with them, so I was able to go and commentate for them, and then I was able to kind of branch out from there and do more, and it was really cool. And that's because I built that connection with him. But, you know, it's a similar thing, too, with, like, Queens of Quarantine. Like, some of the newer voices and commentary for Queens of Quarantine are because we had direct references for them to bring them on mic. So I think just networking is a huge, huge part of not just commentary, but, like, if you're wanting to grow as a content creator, and even competitor, like if you're wanting to grow in the social media scene and potentially land sponsorships, and so forth, I think networking. Obviously, you want to build genuine connections with people. You don't want to just, like, you know, keep it, like, super dry and, like, make it obviously clear that, ulterior motives, but you want to network with someone, build a genuine connection, so that way, like, maybe they have a connection that you can reach out for, or maybe they want a connection and they go to you, so that way they have an opportunity to do something. So that's super huge. I think networking is a huge one across the board. But let's see, the other twos, just practice. I always think too, like, a big one is if you're able to get time with maybe a co-commentator you know you're working with and you stream, like, sometimes if I'm gonna be commentating with someone I've never commentated with before, and it's for a tournament coming up, maybe I'll bring them on stream with me, and me and that person will kind of like just chat on voice, just to kind of get familiar with each other and kind of understand a flow and stuff like that. Like I usually host like a Street Fighter V lobby to do that. But also do your research. I think it's so important. People need to research the bracket beforehand, because that gives you an opportunity to kind of know what to expect with the players. So like, for example, like the European players, like I haven't met most of them, but like I do research on them, so that way I get an idea of, okay, these are the characters they play, these are the expected picks, these are the ones that are gonna probably be on stream, these are the ones that aren't gonna be on stream. More than likely, these are the ones that are really strong and have won past tournaments, because those are all talking points that you can have, especially during moments of like pause or like waiting for loading screen or transition. That like you don't want to really fill those moments with dead space. I think it's better if you're gonna have dead space, have it during the gameplay, but if like versus like the post gameplay, if that makes sense. But oh goodness. There's so many things I can recommend for people to do as far as commentary goes. Make sure to take care of your voice too. Like after commentary, I'm always like, my voice is always super shot, and I end up like, I always try to drink maybe like some like lemon water with honey, or just like some nice tea, and stay hydrated and stuff like that. Oh, and always get up and stretch. They seem really like silly and simple and obvious, but like even I forget to go and stretch sometimes. Like stand up, stretch your legs, get the blood flowing a little bit, sit down, and then continue doing what you're doing. Obviously, if time allows, and if you're sitting in the seat for a long time. But make sure. I mean, there's obvious ones too. Taking care of your health, getting good rest before commentary, because you have to focus on the game, and you don't want to get like distracted or kind of like not be able to like give your attention fully to that game. Trying to think. Don't be nervous. I think like the best, like I'm always nervous when I hop on mic, especially like for bigger events, because I'm just like, oh man, I want to do well. And I think that's a big thing too, is when you have moments where you maybe get really nervous on mic and stuff like that, just like take a deep breath and like just sink yourself into the game. Just talk about the game, talk about what's going on, and have fun with it. And if you're worried about that number, like on the stream, like how many people are watching or whatever, just like close chat, close the stream, and just like focus on the game in front of you, because you're gonna have way more fun that way than like seeing that, oh my god, 300 people's watching and so has said shit about me or whatever. Like it makes it less fun. And it distracts you from the whole point of you being there. I think the other words of advice is, this is more of a don't, but don't beat yourself up if you feel like you didn't do a good job, which is something that I had to struggle with a little bit, because I had commentated for a pretty big event, and afterwards I felt like crap. I was like, wow, I feel like I did terrible. Like I felt like my commentary was just really subpar, and like my co-commentator had to carry me, and I just felt underprepared or whatever have you. And I just did not feel good about it, and I had to really kind of remind myself like why I do commentary in the first place and why I enjoy it so much, and kind of remind myself that like everybody has like those little off days, and like just because it might seem bad to you, most people aren't going to notice it. And even if they do, it's one event. There's going to be hundreds of more. Obviously, as long as you're not being like dumb on commentary about it. Like if you mess up like saying frame data, or you make a small mistake, like somebody corrects you, you acknowledge that correction. And don't let it beat you down if you feel like you did poorly on like one scene. Kind of keep pushing yourself. Use it as a way to like help drive you to improve. Like realize like, oh shit, like I really struggled with this character knowledge, and then use that as an opportunity to like drive you to be better with learning that character and knowing what to talk about that character in the future. Because growth is never like, it's not linear. It's not a straight line up. It's very much like curve and flow, and you know, you're gonna have dips and you're gonna have peaks and you're gonna have in betweens. And I'm sure any commentator can say that, whether me or Saint Cola, or I'm sure even like Sajam, like any commentator will tell you that, you know, there's ebbs and flows and peaks and lows to like growing as a commentator, as a competitor even. You know, like people hit walls all the time and then they have to push through them. But yeah, that, and my other word of advice for commentary: don't commentate a game that you're not comfortable with. And I know I started off saying how, like, oh, my friend Sean Dude got me on mic to talk about Street Fighter V, but like, if somebody approaches you saying like, hey, like, I know you commentate for Tekken, but I want you to be can you commentate for Street Fighter? Like, if you don't play Street Fighter and you feel like what you could bring to the mic is like more detrimental than good, then it's probably best that you pass on that opportunity. I think it's great to take every opportunity you can that's handed to you, but it's also important to weigh the cost of those opportunities as far as just like time and energy and like knowledge and stuff like that. Because like for me, if somebody asked me to commentate Tekken, I'd have to tell them no, because I don't know even remotely enough. I know barely enough about my own favorite character, Lei, to play him. So I think it's important not to, you know, like try to commentate for games that you don't know, because definitely viewers will be able to tell that you don't know it, and it's not going to look good on you. It's not going to look good on whoever asked you, like whatever org or local scene asked you to be on mic for it. So, but yeah, that I think that kind of covers more the commentary realm. I think shifting into like content creator, I think for me, because I've been a content creator longer than I've been a commentator, there's a lot of do's and don'ts. I'll kind of keep it short, but don't ever like when it comes to like streaming, or you know, even just like making YouTube videos, because I've done YouTube videos, I've done streaming, you know, obviously posting photos and stuff like that, but like, don't focus on the number, because it'll become a form of validation, and that's not always healthy. And there were times where I would get really bummed out about streaming and kind of like even question what my goals were, or whether it was worth it, because like I just wouldn't be hitting viewers, and I wouldn't be hitting maybe subs, or even for a while I tracked metrics on like my social media accounts, and I like would see dips, and I'm like, why am I dipping this month versus last month I did really great? And so I think it focusing on those numbers can become really unhealthy. Like, if you want, you can use it as like a sort of driving force, but I think it's more about focusing on the quality rather than quantity. Like, how good is your content? Has it improved? You know, like, has your audio quality improved? Do you enjoy playing games more? You know, do you feel like even though maybe you only get 5 viewers, is that number consistent? Or do you feel like maybe like, hey, people like I only have 5 viewers, but they're always talking in chat, versus maybe like the person who has 100 viewers, but they only have 5 people talking in chat. And you know, it's the same thing too with like making YouTube videos, looking at the progression of the quality. But yeah, don't use that number as a form of like validation that you're doing a good job. You're gonna do a good job, and like doing content creation is so hard. And I feel like it's even harder to get noticed, or make it like quote unquote big. Because I don't even think I'm big. Like I'm not a partner on Twitch or anything like that. The one thing too I will say is consistency will do more views or more followers and stuff like that. Like being consistent on social media platforms. I think Twitter is among one of the easiest platforms to create growth on. I think I would say Instagram might be the hardest, at least for me. That might also be because I don't post as much on there, but I think Instagram can be kind of the hardest, and I think Twitch is somewhere in between. But again, you know, I'm not trying to focus on like what my follower count is on those social media sites. It's more about like, am I putting out content that I enjoy? Am I enjoying what I'm posting? Am I interacting with people that I enjoy interacting with? Because for me, like when I go and I stream and I see people pop in that I recognize, I'm like really excited because I'm like, hey, you know, what's up, Kaz? What's up, Zen? What's up, Kelsey, or so forth? You know, all the regulars that come into my channel, because I know I'm gonna have a good time hanging out with them, and that's what it sometimes feels like, is being able to hang out with them. But sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there. I guess I definitely didn't mean to, but the point is, don't focus on the numbers. Focus on the quality and the consistency. The growth will come. It might take a while. It takes a while for everyone, unless you're like a one-hit wonder, or you do something that blows up on the internet. And I say, like, the sad truth about content creation, like for me, I had to realize, is I get more viewers playing Street Fighter. I don't get as many playing like Phasmophobia or some RPG or something like that, right? So you have to kind of figure out what your target audience is and be understanding to the fact that you're not going to get as many viewers playing one game versus the other, and you kind of have to like determine if that's okay with you or not, because it's more about building that initial core like regulars that'll always come into your streams regardless, and then you'll start getting the viewers more consistently.
Sounds good to me. Plus, I got called a friend of Flexus, so I have my serotonin for the day. But moving forward into like something of your content creation, recently on your channel, which will be linked down in the description box below, you've been doing a segment of like learning Korean and English with your fellow teammate, a musician, who's also a Yoshimitsu player, very well-known Yoshimitsu player. Also, while I'm at it, congrats on y'all's win on the Game Hers for that.
Thanks. Yeah, I was so proud when I found out he won. I messaged him, I was like, oh, I'm so proud of you, good job.
Yep, congrats on that. But I would like to know, can you explain to everyone what drew you to do something like that on your channel, and maybe what are the benefits of the series?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting. So I've been trying to learn Korean since like COVID really started happening. It's the easiest of the Asian languages to learn, and I thought it'd be really cool to learn it because obviously, like, when you think of like the two major spots outside of like the U.S. and Europe and stuff like that for esports is like Korea and Japan, and I was like, Korean's easier, so we're gonna learn Korean for Japanese. And I mean, like, I like listen to K-pop and stuff like that. People are gonna probably be like, oh, she's just a Korea boo or whatever, but no, I think Korean's like a really fun language to learn. It's really interesting the way the alphabet is created and stuff like that. So I had already been trying to learn Korean and was pretty consistent about like my lessons and stuff on like phone apps and things like that. I had actually made a post on Twitter asking like if anybody was interested in helping me with like learning who spoke Korean. And originally one of my other teammates, I think he goes by Burnout Fighter, I'll have to double check on that, but he had messaged me and he's like, yeah, like if you have questions I can help. I was like, cool. But then Emily messaged me, and so iMusician has been, actually I think he's on the team just a couple months before I joined, but I like, obviously iMusician's English is really good, and Emily had told me that like, you know, we could create this idea together where we do the sort of podcast, and me and iMusician can work together to learn Korean and English, because his English is really good, and his Korean obviously is, you know, he's from Korea. And my English is really good, but my Korean is not so good. So it's kind of a really well like pairing, and it was also to kind of help create that friendship, because it can be kind of difficult if a lot of your teammates are in a totally different country than you, and for you to still feel like you belong and you're a part of that team. So for obviously is, I think, an opportunity for Emily to kind of bring us together and connect us together. And so we started brainstorming and we started doing lessons. And obviously the first episode went out and it was really, really fun. I learned so much and had an absolute blast doing it. And then the second episode rolled around, and I guess I should backtrack a little bit. The episodes are essentially, it's a Korean language exchange. So we talk about the cultural differences between Korea and the United States. And we also talk about like what certain words mean in English versus in Korean. So like maybe certain slang phrases, or maybe like what you would say to ask someone for a set, or like whether casually, or like ask someone like if you're talking to the TO because you're getting ready to compete and stuff like that, how to report your score. And then like slang terms too in the fighting game community, like obviously stuff simpler like anti-air, and then also like saying like something is cheap. So phrases like that. So it's really cool because you learn a lot about another culture, another language, and it kind of, you know, but when someday quarantine's over and I'm able to travel and iMusician's able to travel, we'll kind of have that better preparation in mind for going to a tournament. And I think too, like having those episodes recorded and, you know, broadcasted brings the FGC a bit closer together because there's less of a division. Like obviously the nice thing is the FGC, everybody is a part of it, regardless of where you are in the world. But there can still be a little bit of division because, you know, if you want to travel overseas, it can be really intimidating for either side, whether you're in Korea or Japan or Europe or, you know, Australia or wherever. Or from the United States, it can be very intimidating. So kind of having those tools in hand to be able to communicate with fellow players that are foreign, whether you're traveling to their country or they travel here, can really help. So it's kind of a way to bring the FGC a bit closer together and, you know, like battle that like language barrier. But yeah, we do the episodes. We try to do them like every week or every few weeks. It's been, with the holidays and with tournaments coming up, it's been a little bit harder. But yeah, the second episode was really cool because we get to focus on Halloween, which is my favorite holiday. And what I loved about it was we talked about the holiday and we talked about candy and all kinds of fighting game stuff. But then we got to play games together. And we got to play Phasmophobia. And that was really interesting because that was like my first time really playing a game with like somebody from like a totally other country, like basically from somebody who lives in Korea. So it was a really, really cool experience for me because like you kind of try to like communicate and play the game. It was fun too. It was really like bonding experience. So it's cool because like we built a friendship out of learning each other's language. And I think a lot of people can use that as their own opportunity to try to build a friendship through language. So, and I guess too, like a language barrier doesn't mean you can't be friends with another person. So,
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Of course, as everybody knows, Halloween's my favorite too, mainly because it's my birthday. But you know there's that. But
so even better of a holiday.
even better. Which actually, by the way, happy late birthday because yours wasn't too far off too.
Yeah. It was about like what 2 weeks ago, roughly, something like that. But yeah. Thank you so much. It's funny because iMusician, his birthday, I think it either just passed or it is coming up too because he's a November baby as well.
Well, so many close birthdays.
Yeah.
Let's move on to, I would say, probably a more fun question, which is, what would you say your commentating style is like in particular? And do you think you have a possible catchphrase per se? As you know, like you said with James Chen, his is probably "Will it kill?"
Yeah. So I would say I definitely lean more towards the analytical play-by-play, the breakdown. You know, I think every commentator has their hype moments where you're just like, Oh my god, like that's crazy. But for the most part, I definitely feel more specialized in doing that play-by-play, that breakdown, a little more analytical knowledge and kind of understanding like what the player and the character are doing and like that character matchup knowledge. So I would say that's more my commentary style. When I think about like a catchphrase, I like to say things are spicy, or I like to say I like to call a combo beautiful. Like if a combo just is so nice and like executed with such finesse, it's beautiful. But I don't know if I have a catchphrase. I'll have to look back and see if I notice anything that is reoccurring. But I do the one thing I will say is like when I introduce myself, I always say like, hey, it's your girl Flex is back at it again. And I always like, the one thing I say on my stream, and I'll say too sometimes when I'm commentating, if like people like raid the commentary stream and stuff like that, is I treat it like, I don't know where I got the idea from, but you know when you go, like when you used to go to a restaurant and they'd be like, they call out your name and they'd be like, oh, party of 4, or whatever, and then like they would be like, okay, you can be seated now. I say that and a lot, and I'll be like, oh, huge raid from Kazma, party of 10. Welcome to the stream. You may now be seated, kind of thing.
So that's where that's from.
Yeah. I worked briefly in the service industry too, and I mean, I'm a big foodie. I love eating. I like going out to eat. Which is, I'm heartbroken during COVID right now because I can't. Yeah, right. But yeah, that's where that came from. So.
I don't want to get you even more heartbroken because I was like, well, what's your favorite foods?
Oh my gosh, what isn't my favorite food? I think I love tacos, I love fried chicken, and I love Korean food, obviously, and I love like Japanese brown curry. Oh, that stuff is the best.
I'll have to try and eventually, when the time can finally come, try to get some of those one day.
Yeah.
No. Alrighty, so we've already mentioned that you are a big on Chun-Li as well as Lei Wulong. I mean, and honestly, if the viewers listening, if you've seen anything on her channels or anything like that, I think that's pretty easy to see. But my question for that is, why would you like those in particular, and what is the importance of like adding them to your brand, do you think?
That's actually a really cool question. So with Chun-Li, obviously Street Fighter V was my first real fighting game that I got into. And I had tried a couple different characters. I actually tried Nash first. I thought he was cute. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to pick the cute boy with the glasses. I tried really hard to play him, and I just couldn't grasp like his game plan. It didn't fit my style. And then I picked up Chun-Li. And it's something, I don't know what it was. Like, obviously she's the classic character, you know, she's been in Street Fighter since 2, and, you know, she's like strong, powerful woman. It's so badass. And for me, like, Chun-Li fit my playstyle too. She had the great poke game. I didn't have to rely on like, you know, all these like quarters or full circle, half circle, like DP motions. I couldn't do a DP motion to save my life. I still can't. But that was the thing I liked about her, was like she had just like she was complicated in different ways. She was very technical, but it just fit my gameplay and my game style, and something just clicked there. And I just thought, like, as I kind of it clicked first with the gameplay, and then second with the character itself. I started playing her more, and I just fell in love because I thought she's just this like really, like, she's a beautiful woman, and she's strong, and she's like, you know, really noble and kind of badass. and like she's just like a really cool figure, you know, first female fighting game like character you can play, among one of the first female characters that you could play in video games. So it's like a really cool kind of like pinnacle as a woman in gaming. You know, it's still kind of a marginalized group, and and for me, like, it was really cool to see this like powerful figure in a game that does really well. Mind you, I started playing her in season 2, so right after she got majorly nerfed. So that was a little heartbreaking. I didn't get the good life for a long time, but
darn you, Ricky.
yeah, right. But like for me, it was just she's a cool character, and I liked her fighting style. I thought for me, like, she is this like figure that always represents like standing up for the greater good, and this sounds really sappy and cheesy, but that was kind of how I envisioned her. Like for me, it pushes me and encourages me, and to always just like be strong, and like strength can go hand in hand with beauty, and we know that with her because she's this beautiful woman, but she's so strong. Even right now in our current season with Street Fighter 5, she's super strong. She's like top 5, top 10. So for me, it was like really cool because, and as I grew to love her more and more and played her all the time and collected things of her, she kind of became part of my identity. Like I have a tattoo of her because like not only represent like this change in my life of joining the FGC, but also because like for me it reminds myself to like always stand up for the greater good and seek out justice, and just be strong as a woman. And I think that like having a character you can identify with like to that level is really important. And of course with Lei Wulong, he's kind of like, so when I first started playing Tekken, I played Shaheen because I thought he was really fun, and I thought he was really cute too. And again, I transitioned to Lei Wulong because A, I like a challenge. I love making my life more difficult. But B, because he is very similar to Chun-Li, but I liked his like, he's similar in that he stands up for justice, stands up for what's right. He's a good guy, but he's got this such like fun, bubbly, charismatic personality. He's kind of clumsy and like not perfect, not clean cut or neat. And I thought that was just so endearing and so fun. And he's like really silly, and like his combos were super cool. I distinctly remember a lot of his combos, and like he's got that drunken stance you can do that I thought was just hilarious. And every time I play him, I just always end up giggling and just having a blast, and the silliness factor is just up to 10. And so the funny thing is I really started to identify closer with them too, because I started learning Kung Fu back in January. March. It was like, or maybe it was February. It was just before like COVID was really hitting the US. And I remember like doing Kung Fu and stuff like that, and the classes were a blast, and it was cool because like both of those characters practice Kung Fu, and for me it was another way to identify with them and really feel close and personal with them, and I could understand their movements in the game and how that how that's translated from the martial art. So it was a really cool moment because I got to really that was also when I felt like I really connected with Lei Wulong, because he's super like heavily focused in Kung Fu, and he has all those stances, and I'm like, I've done these stances when I do my practice. So it was a really cool way to kind of like feel like a fighting game character in real life, as cheesy as it sounds. But yeah, I think they both kind of represent like aspects of my personality, and I think like I love their character design, and I think they're really fun characters to play, and also just fun characters in concept too. So kind of having that connection with them, and to be blunt, like Lei Wulong, he's my husband. I love Lei Wulong. Like if he was real, I'd marry him. Like I'm one of those fangirls when it comes to him, but I think we all have like characters that we enjoy like that, like male and female. So
of course,
yeah,
because I'm all day.
Yeah, exactly.
No, yep, that answers the question. This next question I was going to ask in a certain way, but I'm actually going to ask it in a different way because it kind of goes with the female, ladies in general as far as FGC things in general go. But I was going to ask, what do you think are maybe some hurdles that a lot of people get into as far as getting into commentary and things? And do you think these things are amplified or the same for a lot of the points you're going to say for the ladies?
So I'll say that the big hurdle is actually taking the step to get onto the mic for the first time or the second time, whether that's for a new event or whether that's in general. I think that's the biggest step and that's the biggest hurdle to get over. And once you get over that hurdle, you know, obviously things slowly become easier. Also, I think a big hurdle is being able to kind of, it's a competitive field in that, you know, like a bunch of people are probably going to apply for a commentary slot and you have to somehow stand out. And you know, I think it's very difficult to, you know, especially if like maybe you're not, you know, you're not the James Chen, you're not the Sejam, you're not these big names in the commentary scene. You know, it's very hard to make yourself stand out and make it, especially if you don't have a big social media following, make it so that somebody wants to pick you. And again, that's why I say like having a reel is a really great way to highlight your strengths and give like people who are picking like, oh, like I haven't heard this name before, but wow, their reel is so good. I have to have them, you know. I think that's a big part of it. Being able to land those slots and being able to get yourself noticed. And part of it too is just like the hustle. Just like you have to hustle and you have to get every chance you can on mic and network with everybody. So that way they recognize your name, even if it's just like them declining you that you can't be on mic that one time. They'll have your name at least somewhat like in the back of their head somewhere. I think that's a big hurdle. And also like I think, to be blunt, chat like because obviously commentary, you know, is streamed live, and dealing with like chat, because we all know gaming communities in general can be very ruthless, and being able to hide behind the
keyboard warriors.
Monitor. Exactly. Keyboard warriors and a monitor. I think it's really difficult to kind of overcome that obstacle and not take things to heart, especially if somebody says something that's maybe not the nicest. I've been fortunate that I haven't had as many of those instances, but I know other commentators who have, and I mean, like, some people are ruthless, and it's heartbreaking. Sometimes it'll make you want to quit. And I know some people who don't commentate anymore because of those reasons, but I think those are the biggest hurdles. But as a woman, I think there are, I think in a lot of ways it is still very difficult, in same aspects as well as different. Like when we're talking about taking the chance to get up on mic, obviously I can't speak from a male's perspective, but I can say as a female, I have that added fear that being a girl, taking the chance to go on mic for the first time is very intimidating, because I don't want people to question me just because of my gender. I don't want people to question me or my knowledge of the game or my passion for the game and make assumptions like, oh, she's only doing it for attention or for the clout. And like, I don't think most people commentate for the clout. Like commentary is hard. There are far easier ways to get clout than trying to commentate. But, you know, it is a fear that I had going into the mic and stuff like that. It's like, oh, what's this girl doing here? She doesn't know anything about this game, kind of thing like that. Like, downplaying my knowledge and my skill set. That was a big hurdle I had to get over. And obviously, too, like, you know, like, are they not only going to comment on my knowledge and skill set as a commentator, but, like, what I look like? And then that's when, like, the sexual harassment comes in, because we see this for competitors as well as women. You know, like, transphobic comments and, like, sexual harassment is rampant in the community. And we see that especially when, you know, people go up on stream, whether you have female commentators or competitors. And I think maybe like some females avoid commentating, or like I know for some females too, they have to deal with that, and it makes it not worth it sometimes, because it's just like stop commenting about how I look, like pay attention to the game and listen to what I have to say, because people will be like, oh, she's just a dumb girl, or oh, she's fat, or oh, she's ugly, or wow, she's so hot, wow, look at her boobs, or whatever stupid stuff, like people make these comments. It's like, I don't want to be noticed. Like, yes, I'm a woman and I'm a woman commentator, but I don't want to be noticed for that. I want to be just known as like a good commentator, not just a good female commentator, if that makes sense.
Yes, perfectly makes sense.
Yeah. But I think also it's dealing with that harassment is really difficult as a female, because when you do commentary, especially for bigger events, you are going to get noticed, and sometimes not for the right ways. And that's when like it hurts almost more, because it's like, I don't want to get I don't want people like following me because they think I'm cute. I want people following me because they like my content or my commentary or like what I do. It almost like it hurts me when like I have people who like message me, and I think that they're actually genuinely like interested in talking to me or like learning about something, and then in actuality they're just like, they have ulterior motives. And I'm sure many women can speak on that, because it does kind of break a level of trust that I have with a lot of people in the community, because it's just like, okay, this person who's messaging me, why are they messaging me? Are they doing it because they genuinely want to make the connection and be my friend and, so forth? Or are they doing it because they just want to, like, I don't know, date me or something? Right? So it's definitely a hurdle to get over. And obviously, like I mentioned this, the aspect of trying to get noticed as a commentator, and you'll stand out a little bit as a female just because like it's a female commentator. But I think a majority of the people that host tournaments and I can speak at least for all the tournaments that I've commentated for, they don't allow me on mic just because I'm a girl. They don't want that. They don't pick it just because it's a representation, right? They don't say, oh, look, we have a female commentator, that looks good on us, or that's going to bring the viewers. And no, they do it because it's and not to toot my own horn, but it's because it's quality commentary, and there's other females too that commentate in other games, like Alicia X Life. She does Soul Calibur, like a lot of Soul Calibur and Tekken, and there's a reason, because she's good. And Romanova, she does, I believe, Dragon Ball Z and MK. And she's obviously always, like, she's done huge events, like majors and stuff like that, and there's a reason. She's good. So I think, like, we only get noticed more because we are female, but I don't think that's necessarily, like, there's a huge difference in that hurdle. Like, it's still, you still have to brand yourself, and you still have to put in the hustle and put in the work to make yourself noticed, regardless if you're male or female. So I think that's where the playing board can be a little bit more even. So.
Agreed. And I can also vouch for Alicia. I've actually done a little interview with her on another podcast thing herself, so cool person. Yeah,
she's really rad.
But actually, going back to something you've mentioned a couple times now, the demo reel. What are some things you could say that maybe others could highlight in their demo reels to make it stand out more?
So, honestly, I hired somebody else to do mine.
Fair enough.
Shout out to RJ. Let me give me like just a second. I want to find his Twitter.
No problem.
But shout out to RJ. Spin Infinite is he's a video editor for Panda Global, but he's done mine, he's done St. Cole's, he's done other commentators reels. He does amazing work. So shout out to him. For me, I know, like, I talked with Alicia a little bit about this when I used to be with AXL, and some of the big key moments or key things to keep in mind if you do end up making your own reel is you want to highlight moments where you can really show off your skill as a commentator, where you can take the floor, but also kind of highlight too, like, okay, have you commentated with big names before? Have you commentated with like James Chen in an event? Have you commentated with Sankola or, you know, like other big names, obviously? Highlight that aspect as well. If you commentated multiple games, show those skill sets. But obviously you don't want to like, you want to keep it relatively short, but not too short. But at the same time, you don't want it to be like super long where they're sitting there watching like 30 minutes of your commentary. Even I don't want to go back and watch 30 minutes of my commentary if I don't have to. I do because I like to learn and grow as a commentator, but I'm not going to sit there and just like listen to just my commentary. I'm usually doing it to watch the game, but I digress. I think with a reel, if you're not comfortable with like video editing and like you don't feel confident, you can always ask other commentators, but B, you can just hire someone. It seems like a kind of a cop-out answer, but that's what I did. And obviously it worked out because I'm able to commentate some decent-sized events. But yeah, picking out clips where you really like excel and you can really shine and know that there's like a key moment that you're like, wow, like I called that out. I predicted that was going to happen. Or, wow, like look at my character knowledge here. I said this was -3 and I said the name of the move and, you know, whatever. I think those are good moments to highlight. And then also highlighting that you can be charismatic on mic and you can, like, people can enjoy working with you as well as, like, listening to you. Because it's a two-way street where, yes, you're trying to put on a show for that people are going to enjoy listening to, but you also need to make sure that you're somebody who's enjoyable to work with. Like, you're a commentator that people will want to work with again in the future. And I feel like sometimes, too, that can show, like, you can kind of tell when two commentators butt heads and, like, it's pretty difficult and you're like, but, and you can kind of feel the tension or, like, the grittiness in a not good way when two commentators don't really, like, work or flow together. So.
Makes sense. Now, this will be our last question of the night. So this one will be, what would you say is your proudest moment, and how has it led you to where you are now?
Oh goodness. I have a lot of really proud, shining moments for me. If I could break it down, if that's okay. Can I break it down? Because obviously I've been a commentator and a content creator, stuff like that.
I feel like I'm an MC right now. Break it down.
I would say my proud moment was, you know, signing with EQNX, because that was a huge step in my career in fighting games, because it's a big team, big major team, and being able to sign with EQNX was such a huge deal because it opened up so many avenues and doors, and being on that team has meant so much to me in this short while that I've been a part with them. I think I joined them back in like August, and since then I've grown tremendously in, I wouldn't even say numbers like on social media and stuff like that, but just in passion and skill and knowledge. And it, you know, a huge part of it is because of them, and it's a really proud moment for me to show that I've grown on my own so much to the point where I was able to join the team like that, because they're a great team, they're a big team, they have like amazing players and content creators and competitors and everything in between. So it was a really proud moment for me. I think competing wise, a big proud moment for me was actually my only Evo I've ever been to. It was Evo last year. I had competed in Street Fighter 5, and I had been like just grinding away. And I remember a bunch of our local guys in Arizona came to support me on one of my matches in pools. And I just remember the guys were like standing behind me. I'm in this match, and like a couple of my friends were there too, and like I'm playing against this dude, and it was like the first real big win for me, because I won like matches here and there in tournament before, but that was like the first one that really just sunk in. And like I remember hearing there's this guy in our community, his name is AZ Collins. He's an OG in the scene, and he's like, way to go, let's go. And he's like cheering for me in the background, and it was just such a like proud moment that I could get this win, because it felt like it wasn't just my win, but I won, like it was like a win that I did for Arizona as our team, because we're a pretty small, tight-knit group, and like I consider myself one of the weaker players in our group. So for me, like that was just such a huge thing, to be able to clutch out that win, and it just like was such a proud moment of mine. Now as a commentator, I think I'm trying to think, like, because there's been so many moments that have just really left me like so proud and so happy. I would say my most recent one was actually this past Wednesday night fight. I hopped onto mic and I started us off, and I just felt so confident, and the flow was just so smooth, and like the commentary was just so on point, and it was just so charismatic and so fun. And I just like seeing like when people compliment you on chat and stuff like that, and having like I had a bit of a heart-to-heart with St. Cola afterwards. Like that was such a proud moment for me, because I was like, I'm really doing this, like I'm really growing as a commentator. Like this is something I want to do. I enjoy this is sick. That was a really proud moment. And then the first time I ever got paid to commentate, because that's obviously the goal, right?
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, being able to get paid to do this, that was huge, because I was like, oh my god, like somebody thinks like I have value and worth, and obviously more than just time. That was huge, like getting that money, and that was for Queens of Quarantine. That's the first time I got paid to commentate, and it was just, phenomenal, and I was so over the moon. So shout out to Queens of Quarantine, all-female tournament, all-female staff. I think the next tournament's going to be December 5th, so it'll be coming up pretty soon here.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, thank you for joining me, Fluxus. You have been a wonderful guest. Is there anything that you would like to maybe promote, or anything coming up soon that you want to let people know? The floor is yours on any of that. Yeah,
so again, I'm Flexus. You guys can check me out on Twitter, Flexus_, and then on Twitch, Flexus__, Instagram at FlexusFGC, and then I have a couple of videos up on YouTube at Flexus. So you guys can check me out there. Huge shout out, of course, to my sponsor, EQNX. You guys can go give them lots of love and check them out. And of course, Queens of Quarantine gonna be December 5th, I believe. So make sure you please go tune into that. That's gonna be a lot of fun. And you know, I'm so happy I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with you today, Kaz. It was really fun, and it's been it's fun to kind of have us sit down and just break down a lot of these thoughts that I have. So I really enjoyed myself today.
And that is the goal. So yay. But no, thank you for joining me, and we will see you all next time. Have a wonderful end of November and a wonderful December. Bye.
Bye.